Am I the asshole for not leaving my own birthday party to drive my best friend home? I, 26 female, have been best friends with Jake, 27 male, for over 6 years. We work at the same company and are also planning to go on a work and travel trip together soon. This situation happened last Friday, which was my birthday. I had planned a big family gathering with over 20 guests, some of whom traveled over an hour to be there. Jake was invited, and he told me that he would come. The night before, we went grocery shopping together, but while sitting in the car, he suddenly told me last minute that he wouldn't be attending because he picked up an extra shift at work. I was a little hurt because we always celebrate our birthdays together, and he didn't need to take the shift. Our company has plenty of people who could have covered it, but I accepted it and moved on. On my birthday, we were texting before his shift. For context, Jake doesn't have a driver's license and usually relies on public transport or walks. I do have a license, but I don't own a car. I use my mother's when I need it. That afternoon, he mentioned that he would have to walk home because public transport stops running at a certain time, something he already knew when he took the shift. He also told me that he was feeling a bit sick and asked if I could come pick him up and drive him home. Our boss even told him that he could leave 2 hours early to catch the last bus if he needed to, but he chose not to. I told him that I couldn't leave my own birthday party just to pick him up and drive him home. I had guests over, food and drinks to serve, and I felt that it would be rude to leave when people had put in time and effort to celebrate with me. He replied, "Can't you just leave for 5 minutes and drive me home?" I explained that it wasn't just a 5-minute trip. I would be gone for at least 30 minutes in total. He replied with a dismissive, "Okay." Later, I checked Find My to make sure that he got home safely and texted him, apologizing that I couldn't drive him, reminding him that I normally do, but I really couldn't leave my own party. That's when he got angry and told me that my behavior was unacceptable and that I was just making excuses. For further context, I do drive him home fairly often, even when I'm not working the same shift as him. But this time, I had a prior commitment, one that he was originally supposed to attend. I reminded him again that our boss had told him that he could leave early to catch the bus. At this point, he started arguing that the town is dangerous at night, but we have both lived here our entire lives, and nothing has ever happened to us. I used to walk at night all the time before I had a license, and another friend of ours, who is also a co-worker, regularly walks home late at night without issue. I tried to understand if something else was going on and asked him if maybe he was upset about something deeper and just projecting it onto the situation. I might have worded it poorly, but instead of talking, he just exploded at me. I apologized if I said it the wrong way, but at that point, he wasn't listening to me at all. Meanwhile, he wasn't trying to understand my side either. I told him that it was my responsibility to be at my own birthday party and that my guests had made an effort to celebrate with me. I couldn't just disappear for half an hour. He dismissed that and told me that I was a bad friend, a bad sister, because I said that I wouldn't drive my sister home either if I had prior commitments and it wasn't an emergency, and that my priorities were all wrong. In the end, he told me that he didn't want to see me for a while. I'm honestly confused and am questioning our friendship after this because of how he reacted. I really tried to understand his side, and I get that he was hurt that I wasn't there for him when he needed me, but at the same time, I couldn't just leave my own party if it wasn't an actual emergency. Now I don't know if our friendship can bounce back from this or how I'm supposed to rely on him moving forward. If this is how he reacts to something like this, what happens if we end up in a similar situation while traveling? Is he just going to leave me behind if I don't do what he wants? For context, him feeling sick was related to a sore throat, so nothing that could be classified as an emergency. Fake names for privacy. So am I the asshole for refusing to leave my own birthday party to drive him home? In the comments, not the asshole and he is not your friend. Yeah, if he's such a close friend that her refusing to leave her own birthday party to give him a ride is unacceptable, how is it acceptable that he unnecessarily picked up a shift and missed her party? OP replies, "I never expected this, to be honest, because we take birthday parties pretty serious, and normally we wouldn't miss each other's birthday. But I was accepting it because we actually thought about making plans the next day to do a homemade spa day or something like this. But the way he reacted to me not driving him home was just out of the blue because I didn't know him like that. Alternative number replies, he manufactured a situation where you were supposed to choose him, and he got pissed off because you put yourself first for once. He was testing you. This was kind of what I was thinking. He sounds manipulative. No one's going to leave their birthday party to give someone a ride home. It's incredibly rude to leave a party in your honor, and I'm 99% sure that that is common knowledge. Either there's something else going on, or he fabricated this whole thing as a test. Yeah, I'm getting big test vibes from this as well. This guy's not a friend. He doesn't sound like a good person. And you've given him all the grace in the world. You've given him the benefit of the doubt. But he is doing something incredibly out of left field and continues to disrespect you, OP. I don't know. I think you need to have a serious chat with him and decide where this friendship goes next, because if he's going to pull this once and not recognize or admit that what he's doing is wrong, who's to say that he won't do it again? People treat you the way you allow them to treat you. I think you need to get on top of this quote-unquote friend of yours. And now, onto the update, about 5 hours later. So I know this is an early update because my post is just a few hours old, but I thought I'd compress more information and some things that happened in the last few hours into an update. First of all, thank you all for your helpful comments. I never expected so many people to relate to this. I'm so sorry for everyone who has gone through something similar. To clarify something that I've seen speculated in the comments, there are no romantic feelings involved. He's gay, so there was never any romantic interest between us. After reading a lot of comments and reflecting on everything, I've decided to go no contact, aside from necessary work-related interactions. I've also made the decision to go forward with my work and travel plans alone because I simply can't trust someone like this to be my emergency contact in another country. I had a long conversation with my parents and showed them the chat. My mom actually broke down crying. She told me she's seen narcissistic behavior and red flags in him for years, but things have gotten worse in the last few months. She said this has been weighing on her, and when she laid everything out for me, I finally saw the bigger picture. Even though it wasn't a romantic relationship, I now realize he was isolating me from other friends and family, always trying to make himself the center of my social life. He even tried to insert himself into most of my other friendships, and looking back, anytime I made progress in life, he would find a way to hold me back or drag me down. My dad told me that some of the recent arguments I've had with my family were actually their way of trying to get me to see what was happening, but I just didn't realize it until now. He also said he's relieved that I won't be traveling overseas with him. My parents reassured me that while this will be hard at first, I will heal, and cutting ties now makes things easier in the long run. They also pointed out things that I had overlooked, like how he tagged along on family holidays without paying, but was never particularly grateful to my family for inviting him. I've started talking to one of our mutual friends about what happened. She's currently busy with the Super Bowl, but once she's back, I'll tell her everything as objectively as possible. I don't want to trash talk him or damage his reputation at work, but if coworkers ask, I'll be honest about why I've distanced myself. I genuinely do wish him the best. I hope he works through his issues and finds happiness, but I'm done. My mum breaking down in tears was the final straw for me. Even though a lot of my social circle overlaps with him, I know that I'll eventually sort everything out and move on. It honestly feels like a friendship divorce, but I think it's a necessary step. I need to reevaluate who my real friends are and how they treat me, and I might need to cut ties with a few other people along the way. I actually texted one of my close friends, joking that we're getting a divorce and that I'm filing for custody of her. I really hope that she won't be manipulated by him, but right now, I need to be prepared for anything. This won't be easy, but I'll cut my losses and move forward. Hopefully towards a better future, with better friends, ones that I can truly trust, and who put just as much effort into our friendships as I do. In the comments, the fact that people are telling her they noticed him isolating her from her family and friends really makes him trying to drag her away from her own party make sense. Yeah, that was such a transparent power play. He's expecting her to leave her birthday party to pick him up, and she's apologizing for it? What the hell? This is sadly a thing I don't see get talked about a lot, especially in media. We all know the toxic abusive marriages or people dating, and we all know how parents or children can be toxic and people shouldn't put up with it, which is fine, but what's not talked about is that friendships can also be extremely toxic and abusive. Just because it's not romantic doesn't mean that you're safe from vultures that isolate and gaslight you for your full attention and control over you. So just like an abusive relationship with a toxic boyfriend or dealing with an abusive parent, OP has been beaten down for so long that she'll excuse the abuse to appease the abuser, especially if you frame it as, oh, I'm being a good friend by helping them. Thankfully, this one incident was enough to finally interrupt the cycle. Grim little situation, that one, but I'm glad that OP got out in the end. Sometimes I feel like it does take a village to realize these toxic, abusive friendships that you're in. She got there in the end, and that's all that matters, so, I hope you keep that friend out of your life, OP. Still not the arsehole. Our next post is by user ThrowRA titled, "My sister-in-law, female 31, disinvited my wife, female 28, from her baby shower after a joke. But my brother still wants me, male 30, to go. I'm stuck in the middle. I recently married the love of my life, and I am super close with my brother. We always imagined our families being close too, until one single lunch ruined everything. So my wife and I went out to eat with my brother and my sister-in-law, female 31, who was pregnant and about to give birth to my first nephew. Needless to say, we are all very excited. Mid-meal, my brother, probably feeling sentimental, goes, 'Man, I hope the baby turns out like OP. He was such a cute kid.' Now, a bit about my sister-in-law. She's usually nice and I like her, but she's definitely type A and a bit high maintenance. Without missing a beat, she shuts my brother down and says, 'No, I'd much rather he turns out like you.' A bit of an awkward comment, and my brother probably thought so as well, so he goes, 'No, seriously, we'd be lucky if the kid was like OP. He was such a nice and cute kid.' And then sister-in-law doubles down and says, 'No, but you're so much more handsome,' before turning to look directly at me and adding, 'No offense.' Now look, I wasn't deeply offended. My brother is a very good-looking guy, so I get it, but who just says that out loud? My wife, who had been quiet up to this point, clearly found it rude. So she jokingly goes, 'Well, as long as the baby doesn't look like sister-in-law, we should be fine.' I chuckled, my brother laughed, but sister-in-law did not laugh. She immediately got pissed, glared at my wife and went, 'What the hell does that mean? That's extremely rude. We're not close enough for jokes like that.' My wife was taken aback and so was I. My brother tried to say something, but she stormed out. My brother followed her, looking about as confused as I felt. Fast forward to today, sister-in-law has officially disinvited my wife from the baby shower and celebration. My wife says she doesn't even want to go, which, fair enough. My brother is devastated and really wants me to be there. Now here's the thing. My brother adores me. He's always been my biggest supporter, and he wants me to be a big part of my nephew's life. He's having his first child, and this moment is really important to him. I love my brother too, and I can't see him sad like that. He says both my wife and sister-in-law need to apologize eventually, but we shouldn't force it right now, and give them some time to cool off. He also thinks that sister-in-law owes me an apology for what she said, but again, pregnancy hormones or whatever, so he doesn't want to push it yet. My parents actually side with my wife and think that sister-in-law was out of line first, but they also believe that I shouldn't miss such a huge moment in my brother's life and that we should cut sister-in-law some slack because of her pregnancy. Here's my issue. I don't feel right going if my wife isn't welcome. I want to support her, but I also know this moment means the world to my brother. If I go, my wife might feel abandoned, and if I don't, my brother will be heartbroken. I feel completely stuck. In the comments, another Dominion says, "You stay home with your wife, send a gift. Your brother has to deal with his wife. Absolutely. Choose your wife, OP, or it will be the beginning of the end for your marriage. I would go, drop my gift off, take some family pics, and then dip, in and out in less than 20 minutes. I think I would frame it as choosing my unborn nephew over petty adult drama. I'm not going to tell my nephew in 10 years, I didn't go to your baby shower because your mum called me ugly, and then your aunt called her ugly, so we were all beefing at the time. Brother should not be putting OP in the middle. Brother should have said something to his wife about the insults that she slung twice at OP, whom the brother allegedly adores. Instead, brother took the cowardly way and let OP's wife stand up to the brother's wife and take the heat and her wrath. Sister-in-law can dish it out, but can't take it. Pregnancy hormones, type A, high maintenance, etc. are not an excuse to be rude and disrespectful. OP sends a gift and stays home with his wife. I'm failing to see why what the sister-in-law said was offensive. I'd rather my kids turn out like my husband rather than my brother-in-law, regardless of what my husband said in the moment. Your wife got butthurt over another woman preferring her own husband over hers on the subject of her child. That's weird as fuck to me. Yeah, this whole mess makes no sense, and the wife's joke taking offense to what sister-in-law said was cruel. None of this makes sense, and then everyone laughed, except the sister-in-law, of course. OP's brother didn't even defend his wife and kept with the awkward cringe joke of their baby looking like his cute brother, yikes, and then laughed at his wife being indirectly called ugly? What? Thank you. I'm so confused by these comments acting like sister-in-law was way over the line and brought this on herself. Of course she'd rather think of her child as being like her husband, and OP's wife definitely didn't need to go there in response to a really mundane comment. Totally uncalled for. And to be honest, I suspect the original comment isn't even as much of an issue as the way they handled things after the fact. Like, would she be this upset if they just apologized and owned up to reading the room wrong and hurting her? Would she be this upset if her husband had backed her up on it instead of acting like she needed to apologize? OP and his wife seem to be doubling down for no reason, and her own husband is clearly more aligned with his brother than with her. Not to mention the parents, who weren't even there, sticking their 2 cents in. That's always productive. At this point, right or wrong, she probably feels ganged up on, and is even less likely to back down as a result. Is this really worth the energy? Does OP really need an apology from her badly enough to keep going back and forth on this? I say let her have this one and move on. Even if she expressed herself poorly or overreacted or whatever else. Seriously, who cares at this point? What your wife said obviously hurt her more than what she said hurt you. So just eat crow and call it a day and focus on being happy for your brother's new baby. This is not worth dragging out any further, and all of you are doing that in your own way. Yeah, I can get on board with that reasoning. I think you 3 handled this situation pretty badly, and I think the sister-in-law is right in feeling upset. The brother doubling down in this situation, don't think that's a good move. Probably a mistake. I think OP should do what everyone else is saying and stick with their wife. Try not to cause more trouble and apologize for what has happened so far. So yeah, you have to apologize, your brother should apologize, and your wife should apologize. I don't think that the sister-in-law is wrong for being upset and reacting the way that she did. And now, onto the update, 6 days later. Thanks everyone for the replies. I think I read almost every single one. I really appreciated the different perspectives. First, some clarifications. My wife is not a mean person. She made a joke in the moment, although I admit that it wasn't a great joke given the sensitivity of the situation, but she's genuinely one of the kindest, most caring people that I know. That's one of the reasons I love her so much. I don't think my brother did anything wrong by bringing up the topic. We were reminiscing about childhood, and he probably got nostalgic about having his little brother following him everywhere. My brother and I resemble each other quite a bit, although he's definitely the better-looking one. Funny how that works, and just to be clear, that doesn't mean that I'm insecure. If anything, he's the outlier. He's one of those people who naturally turns heads. Even when we were younger, he would get random girls hitting on him wherever he went. It was such a running joke in our family that even my parents would tease him about it. The entire conversation lasted less than 5 minutes and escalated very quickly. I agree with the comments that all of us should have handled the situation better, but easier to say that in hindsight. In real time, things just got out of hand very quickly. I'm sure that all of us regret what we said in that moment. Now for the actual update. I told my wife that I wouldn't go unless she was also invited. She immediately told people that she didn't want to be the reason that I missed it and that I should go if I wanted to. She even said she'd be willing to apologize if my sister-in-law was open to it, but that she wouldn't attend even if re-invited because she would feel uncomfortable. I told her that I appreciate that, but for me, it was both of us or none of us. And then I called my brother. And this is where I have to give him a lot of credit because I know he was upset. He had really wanted me there, and I could hear the disappointment in his voice, but instead of pushing, he just said, "I get it, man. Don't worry about it." I know that wasn't easy for him to say. He had to balance keeping things calm with his wife while also wanting his brother by his side. But he didn't guilt-trip me. He didn't try to convince me otherwise. He just let me make my choice. He even said, "Don't worry, we'll save you guys some food and I'll drop it off later." I offered to help with setup if he needed it and told him to say that I have COVID to avoid awkward questions. He just laughed and said, "Got it. You caught the world's shortest COVID. Just long enough for the baby shower, but miraculously recovered the next day." Now, here's where things got a bit more complicated. My mum was not happy with him for not sorting this out earlier. She felt like he should have stepped in and made peace before it got to the point where my wife was uninvited, but my parents didn't say anything directly because they didn't want to get involved in the drama. I think that really weighed on him. He was already trying to navigate a tough situation, and now he had our parents silently judging him too. It put him in an impossible situation, trying to be a good husband, a good brother, and a good son all at once. A couple of days passed with no further drama, and then something unexpected happened. My wife got a call from my sister-in-law. At first, my wife panicked, thinking she was about to get yelled at, but instead, they had a really good conversation. I overheard bits of it, including my wife saying, "No, you're gorgeous," which made me laugh a little. After the call, my wife told me that sister-in-law actually apologized first. She admitted that she'd been feeling really self-conscious about her looks during pregnancy and that my wife's joke had hit a sore spot. A little later, my brother called me. He told me that he had gently talked to sister-in-law and helped her see that things had gotten out of hand. He also told me that knowing my wife was willing to apologize had made a huge difference. And then, he admitted something. He wanted to fix things before the baby shower, but he knew that his wife was already under a lot of stress, and he didn't want to add more pressure on her while she was in the middle of planning. And honestly, I respect that. My sister-in-law is one of those people who needs everything to be perfect. Her looks, my brother's looks, the house, the decorations, etc. So I can understand the pressure that she must have put on herself. And my brother knew that pushing her while she was stressed wouldn't have helped, so he waited. After the event, when things calmed down, he quietly stepped in and fixed things. So where do we stand now? Well, things seem good on the surface. My wife and sister-in-law made peace, and my brother and I are fine. My wife and I have decided to just be extra sensitive around sister-in-law given what she's going through. All in all, the situation seems to have brought us somewhat closer together. The real takeaway? I have an amazing wife, but her humor could use some work. Also, my brother ain't too bad. Side note, speaking of whom, my brother will probably never see this because he only uses Reddit for sports and news, or so he says. But in the off chance he does, well, guess I'm busted. But since I have your attention, I'll admit something just this once. You're the best bro that I could have asked for. That time you helped me for uni, I don't think you know how much it really meant to me. And when I was at a really low point, you stood by me. I don't think I've ever said it, but I've always appreciated that. Of course, I won't ever admit this in person, and will forever deny that I ever wrote this. Edit. Everyone keeps asking why my wife didn't apologize first, and I thought I made it clear in the post, but maybe not. My wife was going to apologize, but wanted to check if sister-in-law was open to it. She had just been uninvited, so we had no idea whether my sister-in-law was even open to talking to her. I had told my brother that my wife wanted to apologize, and if he had given us the green light, my wife would have absolutely called. Instead, my sister-in-law decided to call once my brother told her that my wife wanted to apologize. That was her being the bigger person. In the comments, Sarah Bera says, "Wow, everyone was reasonable, the family wasn't torn, and the parents stayed out of it. It's a Reddit miracle." I know you say it's embarrassing, but please tell your brother what you wrote here, even if it's in a text. Nobody knows what tomorrow will bring, and telling the people in your life that you love them and appreciate them is always a good thing to do. Imagine if he wasn't around to tell. You'd be wishing you had. Trust me. Our next post is by user Physical Device, titled, "Today I messed up by calling a family's recently deceased son an effing moron." For context, I'm a mailman who works out of the Midwest. I don't have to tell my fellow carriers in this area that the past 3 months have been rough. Not only has my city had snow for 3 weeks straight now, but Christmas package volume hasn't gone down very much. I've been working from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday for these 3 months, just trying to keep up with the volume. It's also been very cold, and all around, I've been extremely stressed out and tired. Well, yesterday was no different, as I was told first thing in the morning that I had 2 routes that I had to get done on my own, plus any extra packages when I got back. Not only that, but my ProMaster, a bigger mail truck, had been taken on Sunday for maintenance, and I'd have to take a much smaller Metris car. This means I'll have much less space for all the mail and packages, but Metris cannot drive through any amount of snow. Not joking, a light dusting on the road will result in you getting stuck, so I was already tired and very frustrated. Fast forward to halfway through my day, and I'm delivering packages to a nicer neighborhood. I see the house that I'm dropping a package at doesn't have any open spots to park on the street, except for in front of their neighbor's fairly long driveway. It's not uncommon for us carriers to block a driveway for a minute just to drop off a package, so I don't think anything of it. Well, I couldn't see the end of the driveway due to the other cars, and as I turned to park, I realized that at the end of the driveway is a pretty large pile of snow. I tried to brake and turn, but it was too late. I land right in the middle of this pile of snow, completely stuck. I try in vain to get myself out, but for safety reasons, we aren't allowed to dig ourselves out. So I have to call the office to get a tow truck, which I'm told may take an hour to get there. This means I'll have to stay an extra hour to get the rest of the packages delivered. Pretty obviously, I am absolutely livid at this point, cursing up a storm in my car. Well, down the driveway comes a man who doesn't look very happy. He throws up his arms in that "what the hell are you doing" pose, which just makes me more mad. I get out and snap him a "can I help you?" He snaps back at me with a "what the hell are you doing blocking my driveway?" This is where I fucked up. I'm usually very calm and polite with customers, no matter how rude they are to me, but today I just couldn't control myself, and I say, "Well, it looks like someone was too lazy to shovel the snow on their driveway into their yard, and instead piled it in the street." The man gets red in the face and looks like he's going to scream at me, but takes a deep breath and says, "My son shoveled this for me." Without even thinking, I respond, "Well, your son's a fucking moron." I again expect him to yell at me, which in hindsight is exactly what I wanted him to do. Instead, he stumbles back like I struck him, and I see tears start to pour from his eyes. He immediately turns and half runs up the driveway, and I can see he's sobbing. I instantly feel confused and extremely guilty, because mailman or not, there was no reason for him to speak to him that way. So pretty quickly I follow him up the driveway where I see their cars parked. On both of the back windshields is a sticker of a boy with text on top and bottom that says, using fake name, "Rest in peace, Riley. We'll miss you. 2008 to 2025. I feel like I was slapped in the face. Their child had passed 2 weeks ago. I walked to their door in a daze, and I knock. Both parents answer, a mix of fury and anguish on their face. That's when the stress and exhaustion from the past 3 months and the intense guilt that I was feeling hit me like a brick wall. I dropped to my knees and began to cry, trying to tell them that I was sorry in between sobs. To my astonishment, both parents dropped next to me, wrapped me in a hug, and started to cry with me. We stayed like that for a few minutes until I got my crying under control, and I told them why I was so angry and how sorry I was. The dad put his hand on my shoulder and told me that he forgave me, which brought on more tears. We introduced ourselves and talked for a bit, but eventually I had to go wait for the tow truck in my car. But as I was waiting, they both came out with winter gear and snow shovels. They were offering to dig me out, which I vehemently refused. I told them that I didn't at all deserve their help, but the mother told me, I cleaned up my son's messes for 16 years because I'm his mother. That doesn't just stop because he passed, which caused me to cry even more. They eventually got me out, and I exchanged phone numbers with them and told them that I'd invite them over for dinner later this week. They accepted, and now my wife and I are going to cook them a veritable feast this coming Saturday. In the comments, Zenim says, a mistake done when in a stressed day pales in comparison to the immensity of your soul in being able to sympathize and share your heart with them. You're a good and kind person, OP. Not everyone would think about the dad who went back home crying. You done good in the end. This is what matters. This was worth the read. Honestly, it's easy to lash back and forth in the heat of things, but sometimes just falling into a deeper level of understanding out of empathy, it really opens you up to important and impactful moments. Thanks for sharing. I don't think you messed up. What you've done is allow some release for you and possibly the parents. Not what you would intend to do, but it sounds like it's healthy. If you hadn't apologized, that would have been messed up. They are mature enough to recognize that you were just being human, aka having a bad day. Glad you made some new connections in these tough times. We all make mistakes, and it's good that you've made up for your mistake in this situation, regardless of everything that was happening to you at the time, OP. I do hope that everything starts to get better at work for you. You were put in an impossible situation. I understand why you reacted the way you did, and again, yeah, we're only human. You might have messed up, but you did so good in rectifying your mistakes and showing your humanity. So thank you for doing that. And now, onto the update, 5 days later. So first things first, I'd like to say thank you to everyone who posted love and support on the original post. I apologize for not responding to any comments. I really thought that I was going to get torn up in the comments, so I muted the post right after I posted it. I wasn't going to post this story in the first place, but a friend of mine told me about this subreddit and told me that people would love to hear the story. I'll be more active on this post. Now, as for an actual update, the parents did have dinner with my wife and I last night, and they are absolutely wonderful people. They are 40 and 42, are quite a bit older than my wife and I, 28 and 27, but that didn't matter in the slightest. We had my family's famous goulash with a very nice bottle of wine they brought with them, and talked almost the whole night. At one point, I did work up the courage to tell them about the post, and they were a bit apprehensive at first. But once I read some of the wonderful comments you all wrote, I didn't read the absolutely disgusting comments that some people left, they felt absolutely blessed that so many were supportive of their family and our new friendship. The father did have something he wanted me to include in this update. Before he had his son, he was a lot like me. Very quick to anger, prone to flying off the handle if he was having a bad day. When he had his son, he got a bit better, but was still an angry person overall. When his son died, he had an absolute meltdown and said some very hurtful things to family members who were trying to be supportive. He's going to feel that guilt about that forever, and made a promise to both his wife and son that he would keep his anger under control. Well, then along comes me, his first real test of his new promise. He told me he genuinely believes that his son sent me as a real test to the promise that he made him. He encourages everyone to do the same, to approach others with compassion and kindness before anger, as none of us truly know what battles everyone around us is fighting. In the comments, Lil MXFI says, "This is the most beautiful update to an TIFU that I've ever seen on here. I'm glad that the moment of anger turned into something beautiful. I'm not a believer in fate or what have you, but if ever there was a case to be made for some things really do happen for a reason, it's this. Thank you for updating. I've been thinking about that post, and it's amazing to see that you've connected like this and forged a friendship. My faith in the kindness of humanity has been restored on this one." Enviromo says, "Oh man, I'm crying. Thank you for sharing, and please thank your new friends too. I'm gonna stop with Reddit today and go be kind to myself and my dog and everyone I see." And Master of Kittens 3K says, "As someone who has had to work on his anger management, I would like to offer you some advice on how to improve yourself. The first one is going to sound wrong, but it's really important. Don't bottle things up. Let yourself be annoyed or hurt or whatever. Bottling it up is what leads to the explosions. Second, learn to slow down. Breathe a little bit before you start to respond to things. Those two things can make a huge difference in your life." Chaos Draws Near says, "I did something similar once. I was at an outdoor event and had only one earbud in. A man approached and asked me why. I think I said something about safety and being able to hear your surroundings, and how stupid it would be to be in a crowd or on a road with two earbuds in. Turns out his daughter died after walking on train tracks with noise-cancelling headphones on, and he was hoping to get a quote from me to put on his awareness website. I regret saying that to the guy, because I know it must have hurt him quite a bit to hear, but I also kind of feel like it only proved my point." And that's where I'm going to end today's episode, guys. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, let me know what you thought of it in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.